We almost never in our culture look at Jesus' example of sonship and think about how that might apply to our families. Hey, what's up, guys? Jeff and Jeremy here on another day of 5 Minute Fatherhood. Jesus was the best son that has ever existed. And he really is the archetype or the image of what we need to think of when we think of a son. So I love anytime Jesus starts to articulate what is sonship, what does it mean to be a son? And I'm not sure we understand the essence of what it means to be a son. In our culture, when we think of a son, we oftentimes think of a 5-year-old. That was not what people thought of in the first century in Israel. And so there's lots of little clues to how they saw a son, what a son was. Jesus told a parable in Mark 12 that I think is really interesting. There's a lot in this parable. I'm just going to focus on just this one aspect and how it represents what and who a son is. Anyway, Jesus said, and he began to speak to them in parables, saying, "A man planted a vineyard and put a fence around it and dug a pit for the winepress and built a tower and leased it to tenants and went to another country. When the season came, he sent a servant to the tenants to get from them some of the fruit of the vineyard. And they took him and beat him and sent him away empty-handed. Again, he sent to them another servant, and they struck him on the head and treated him shamefully. And he sent another, and they killed him. And so with many others. Some they beat, some they killed. He had still one other, a beloved son. Finally, he sent him to them, saying, 'They will respect my son.' But those tenants said to one another, 'This is the heir. Come, let us kill him, and the inheritance will be ours.'" Now, there's lots of deep theological things to talk about in this parable. We're only going to deal with one thing, and that is, what does this parable reveal about the nature of sonship? In other words, when this father said, "I'm going to send my beloved son," what was he saying? And we're really important, you guys. We are encouraging you to think about family as a multi-generational team. And multi-generational fathers or patriarchs think very differently about what a son is. And the way that a patriarch thinks about a son is a representative of the father and a representative of the family. They embody the authority of the father. That is the essence of what a son is and what sonship means. Now, Jesus knew this, and Jesus was the best example in human history of what a great son looks like. And there's so many practical examples, but we almost never in our culture look at Jesus' example of sonship and think about how that might apply to our families. What might it look like for you to raise your son to be a representative of the family, to represent the multi-generational vision and hopes and dreams of the family? And I know that that puts a lot of different things into what sonship means, but man, it's incredible what we think about. Well, that could crush a son, or what about their dreams, or they're an individual, and all those things should be considered. But man, we are over considering that element, and we're stealing from our sons the kind of identity that they could enjoy if they begin to see the vision of their father and want to represent the multi-generational vision of their family. So a lot of times we've never even thought about that. We've never imagined sort of pitching that idea to our sons. And there's a lot of ways in which this applies to daughters as well, but I want to dial in to the way first century people thought about sonship. And it's really important for us to imagine it's possible for us to give this kind of rootedness and vision to our sons in the context of a multi-generational family.
Yeah, and one last thing I would say that I was thinking of when you were talking is coaching discipleship, and that's not really a phrase people use for that, but like there's legacies of coaches that come from other coaches that are basically like 100% just prototypes of those coaches, and then they like disseminate that coach's vision on other teams, right? I'm blanking right now when I'm thinking about it, but there's tons in the sense of like I think there's like 4 NFL coaches right now or whatever.
Andy Reid.
We're all assistants under like one coach 10 years ago.
Bill Belichick.
And you can, and you see it in all you see it. Like once you actually know that, you see like, oh, the DNA is Bill Belichick or whoever's that more patriarchal coach. The first one is his DNA is all over the teams that he has nothing to do with. And I think there's something there with like that father-son mentality of like, it's the vision is still so kept and actually like believed in, of like, they see it as actually their mission to bring like that good news of how to actually operate a team to this era or this domain. And I think that's very similar with not only the gospel, but then father-son of like, it can be a son, but then clearly still the vision of the father, just in like a new profound way through the next generation. So yeah, I love that. And I think that's huge.